Hello and welcome once again. I'm Patrick Jagger, the Cosmic Alchemist, and welcome to my April 2020 astrological forecast and basically an analysis of what's going on in this coming month. If you've never tuned in before, basically what I do here is I go into the month, to the upcoming month, and I tell it to you straight the way I see it. I don't sugarcoat anything, but I also point out all the positivity that's all around us, because there's always positivity around us, there's always optimism, and there's always something to look forward to, but we have to be real with ourselves. And the big thing that I do in these videos is I encourage people to be real, and because I'm always working to be real with myself and to see reality as it is and not as my fear wants to see it. So I hope everyone's having a good lockdown, and some people might think that's insensitive, but it's given us time to really look at ourselves and take a deeper look at ourselves and find new opportunities. Where the world's definitely changed from here on in, but there's a lot of opportunity. But the big thing here is that the world is not going to go back to the way it was, and it's not going to go back to some idolized past, some time in the past that you think was absolutely ideal. So it's not going back to the 80s or the 60s or the FDR days or none of that. It's not even going back to last year. So what we have to do is we have to be open to the new opportunities and to be positive. And when you're electromagnetically, when you're positively charged, you can attract good things to you. So the big elephant in the room right now, the big thing that's on everybody's mind is, you guessed it, coronavirus. So I've talked about this before, but for people who are new, what the hell is coronavirus and what does it mean? Well, coronavirus is a product of our need to always play the blame game, to always blame other people for the way our lives are, the way the world is. It's always, those Democrats did it, those Republicans did it, my in-laws screwed it all up, those stupid people screwed it all up. Life is really a genie in the lamp. It's a genie in the magic lamp. And, what you think about all the time and you wish for, you end up getting it. But when you're always doing this, when you're thinking about life and you're relating to your life from a place of blaming people and from a place of fear and a place of insecurity, you don't ask the genie for your wish the right way. And the genie gives you like a fucked up, deformed kind of Quasimodo version of your wish. So, since politics just dominates so many people's minds these days, I like to use this time to point out that, if you wished for a border wall around the United States, for the United States to have this big wall around it, then your wish just came true. But because you had that desire out of fear and you wanted to go back to some good old days, you weren't wishing the right way. So here you go. So congratulations on your wishing, and it's like, in the right-wing circles, people who push for the whole border wall, they love the history of the Spartans and the Spartan macho, manly culture, but Sparta had a saying, Sparta needs no walls. So you can't have it both ways. And then to keep this fair and balanced on the other side, for people on the left who just dreamed of a day when, you know, the government could rule every aspect of their lives and just boss them around from sun up until sundown and even in their sleep. Well, you got your wish too, but it didn't come in some touchy-feely progressive package. It's basically, you know, we're kind of looking at this, some people might call it a medical tyranny, where you have to have basically your rabies shot certificates like a dog at all times, because that's what traveling is going to probably turn into here, at least for a little while. We're going to have another Patriot Act, and the big scare instead of terrorism is a virus that, what, 1% of the population is susceptible to because they have compromised immune systems. So, if you were wishing for government to rule every aspect of your life, well, congratulations. Again, you were wishing from fear and insecurity, and you were playing the blame game. So, you know, way to go. The genie in the magic lamp is an unforgiving thing. So, that's what coronavirus is all about. It was all from galactic center. We basically downloaded all of this thing. We downloaded this virus, and the command that made us download this virus from galactic center was all of our negativity in the blame game, and, you know, the us versus them, just bickering bullshit. So, you know, when that download came during that December 26, 2019 solar eclipse in Sagittarius. So that's all about. So we got to move on from this, and we gotta. I don't want to say get past our fear, because fear is always part of you, but you have to put it in the right context. You have to be objective and not be ruled by it. So, and not do your wishing from it, because we just did our wishing from fear, as I was talking about, and the genie gave us the distorted version of what we wished for because we weren't specific enough. So anyway, speaking of this coronavirus, what I'm looking at here is that last week of April, you're going to see this really start dropping off. Now I'm talking about, you know, here in the United States where I live, same thing for Canada, and likely the same thing for Europe. So, because April 22nd, Rahu, who was really the agent that delivered this to us, you know, Rahu is the trickster, and Rahu's all about illusion. Rahu also deals with diseases, with infectious diseases, viruses, for example. So Rahu was not only in Gemini, but Rahu was in the nakshatra, or the mini constellation that's part of Gemini. It's called Ardira. Ardira is the teardrop, the howling winds, the tragic events. Rahu is also Ardira is also the poison that Shiva drank in the mythology. So, Rahu is moving from Ardira, the poison, into Mrigasira, and Mrigasira is the elixir of immortality, the elixir of eternal life. So, there are treatments and cures and, you know, all that kind of thing coming for this. So we're going to see this lifting. You know, the other thing too is in the northern hemisphere, the sun crossed the equator. So when the sun crosses the equator and it comes north, the Earth's energy kind of rises out of the Earth, and we have that Earth energy and that solar energy of the spring and summer basically helping our bodies and our immune systems. So, you know, nature's doing its thing here too to help us. So, big takeaway here is use these times to heal, because it's all around us. We even have I'll get into this later, but we've got a full moon in Virgo coming up. Virgo is all about healing, medicine, you know, all that kind of stuff. So use these times to heal, and not so much your body, but your emotions, your thoughts, you know, your repetitive, basically negative thoughts, just and emotions, the things that just run in your head and run in your heart and get you all pissed off. Really look at those. Really look at where those come from. And I bet you what you're going to find is that all those repetitive thoughts and emotions that get you all stirred up and get you all angry and really hurt your health, they come from some level of a victim mentality where you expected people to be exactly like you and they didn't treat you the way you wanted to be, and you felt like you got burned. But you can't expect everyone to be like you. And we do this a lot. We project our values and the way we do things onto other people, and then we get all offended when they don't do things our way. So really look into this. Now, another big point for the times here, we're definitely in the middle of a spiritual awakening. And it's creeping up on us. These things don't just roll in overnight. But what we had for, what was it now, 4 months, we had Jupiter and Ketu both in Sagittarius, pretty close to each other. And it was actually January the 5th, Jupiter and Ketu were conjunct. They haven't done this since 1889. 1889 was a big year. That's when electromagnetic waves were discovered. It was the advent of the spiritualist movement. Scientists like, Nikola Tesla, Thomas Edison were coming in, and a lot of big scientific breakthroughs. Also a big rise in the spiritual consciousness. Europe and the whole Western world, which had been under the thumb of Christianity, which basically had everyone on Satan watch for 1700 years. The spiritualist movement brought spirituality back to the Western world. And, Christianity, I really call it churchianity, because it's not about Jesus and it's not about spirituality, really. It's about the dogma of their interpretation of the Bible. So the spiritualist movement just kind of wiped that all aside and said, you don't need some clergyman, some clergywoman, whatever, to mediate between you and God. And you don't have to worship God between these narrow boundaries. And spiritualism also taught people that God is in you, and in a way, you are God. And it doesn't mean that you're all powerful and you can impose your will on other people. And a lot of people, when they hear that, that's what they think. They get scared when they hear this idea that you are God. And why that is because the God of the Old Testament was one of the biggest assholes in recorded, not so much recorded history, but in any recorded work. Because the God of the Old Testament was the sun in Aries, where in those days the sun was in Aries. And sun in Aries is pure ego, and it's just pure, I want, me, right now. So when people hear that, you are God, they get afraid because they think all these people around them are going to be acting like the God of the Old Testament and taking whatever they want. And the God of the Old Testament, in the story, told the Israelites to cross the River Jordan and go into Jericho and all those cities in Canaan and just kill everyone in there, including the livestock, because that land is yours. So that's not what that means, you are God. You are God means that you are infinite and you can create anything in your life and you can transform yourself. So that's what the spiritualist movement in 1889, starting then, was teaching people. And the spiritualist church is coming back pretty big. I know of one actually right near me, so it's pretty cool. And another big thing, just in general here, before we get into the nitty-gritty, we have a Jupiter-Pluto conjunction coming up. We actually have 3 of them in the near future here. And the first of which, let me see here. 1 second, I've lost my place. Aha. It was right in front of me. Jupiter-Pluto conjunct is right on April 1st, so April Fool's Day. So it was March 30th, Jupiter transited into Capricorn, into Saturn's home sign. So And Pluto is sitting right there at 0 degrees. So Jupiter and Pluto is basically, this is that whole thing about the whole prediction back around 2012-ish about some people on Earth would go into fifth dimensional consciousness and other people would stay in the 3D, and would sort of be this parting of the ways. And Jupiter and Pluto really sets up that kind of thing. I don't think that's literally true. It's possible. I don't think a portion of the planet is going to disappear one day, but what we're seeing with this whole coronavirus situation is that people are living in different realities. People who are taking it in stride, and they're accepting that I don't know what's going on, and I'm just going to have to live with that, and I'm just going to have to enjoy something in my life, and I'm just going to have to live in the present moment and just take this whole thing in stride and deal with it if I have to, but not freak out about it. They're in one universe, and then you have people who are just, they're going crazy about this, and they're begging for a lockdown, and they're begging to get vaccinated with an untested vaccine just because they're so afraid. And if you say anything that this coronavirus is not the end of the world, and it's not really this huge deal that corporate media is saying it is, they freak out. And they have a little shit fit because you're not afraid of this thing as they are. So, yeah, those are basically people living in two different universes. But the pain in the ass thing, if you're not buying into the whole fear of all this and really the con job that's being built on it right now, then people can't accept that you're not as scared as they are. So, I know there are astrologers scaring the shit out of people for the last few months. There are intuitives who have been saying this is Armageddon and the apocalypse and a third of the earth is going to be dead, because they've got this kind of Christian Book of Revelations brainwashing where they're not really going to be satisfied until they see Armageddon. Yeah, they've been saying this stuff, but it's not it. It's not that at all. So the whole point is, since we have to share a world with people who are buying into the fear, it makes it a pain in the ass. But, we'll get through this like anything else. So, anyway, Jupiter and Pluto conjunct, this is where you make or break your life, and you're going to make or break really the rest of your life based on your attitude and on your perceptions of what's around you. And the thing you really need to understand here is that whatever's inside of you, you're going to project out in the outside world. So bear this in mind, because if you don't understand this, you might just see fear around every corner, and you're gonna beg for some government strong man, strong woman, some Ivy League clown to come in and just boss you around every minute of the day. That's what you're going to want, because you're going to think the sky's falling. So, and another generality here, because it's affecting all of us, is the economy. Another general point, I should say. So many of us can't go to work. I haven't been to work since March 12th. I do acupuncture for my day job, and I see patients. I see a lot of patients every day, and can't do that. All the businesses have been ordered closed. It was definitely a wise thing to do, because nobody understands this virus, so it's best to isolate for a while. So really the big thing here that's been going on, and we're going to see this looking back, the economic fallout from this is way worse than anything that the virus could do. A lot of people don't know how they're going to pay their bills. People with properties, they don't know how they're going to pay the mortgages, especially people who rent properties out, who need tenants to pay the rent so they can pay the mortgage. They're sweating. This whole thing has really destroyed Main Street. And a lot of astrologers are saying, the stock market is It's going to be volatile. It's going to go up and down. There's all this opportunity. Yeah, well, great. But most people listening to this don't make a living off of kicking back and trading stocks. They actually have to go to work and, sweat a little bit. So, yeah, you're going to see a volatile stock market. It's going to be up and down. A lot of people are going to make money off this, just like they made money when everything crashed in 2008. But, like I said, Main Street is hurting, and we need to get going again. And we need to have a little pushback here, because government could really string this whole thing out longer than it needs to, because government's having a field day with this, just like they had with 9/11, because people listen to them more and they're more relevant when people are afraid. And mainstream media does really well when people are afraid, because people watch them, and people don't have much more to do lately other than watch them. So we need to see through this, and we need to push our leaders in this world to get things back up and running when these numbers start falling off. Because they could, even when the numbers fall off and coronavirus is not a factor anymore, they could keep this stuff going just because they're control freaks, and they're power mongers. So bear this in mind too. So let's get into the nuts and bolts of the astrology. I mentioned Jupiter being in Capricorn now. The nakshatra it's in, the mini constellation it's in, is Uttarashada. So Uttarashada starts in Sagittarius. Sagittarius is all about learning, higher knowledge, higher education, and it continues into Capricorn a little bit. So Uttarashada is not the most get up and go kind of a constellation when planets are here. It's kind of the well-studied intellectual that kind of likes to sit in a cushy chair and tell other people what to do. So, we're going to start getting over this whole situation, but in April here, it's going to feel like it's dragging, and people are already sick of hanging around at home. They want to get back to life and socializing and doing fun things and making money. But a lot of the let me check to count the planets here. Damn it. So, 1, 2, 3, holy shit. Yeah. Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, and Pluto all in Uttarashada, so in those first degrees of Capricorn on April 1st here. So, Saturn, it's like public servants, government secretaries, ministers, civil servants, administrators. Saturn's the get up and go, active energy, the warrior energy. Pluto is sort of the one who, Pluto's kind of like the god of the underworld. Some people would call him the devil. And, the devil is just the person who shows you who you really are, and shows you, what's really inside of you and what's really going on. Strips all your illusions away, and you don't have, your social status and your this and your that to hide behind. You're just like the naked you, showing your true colors. So, and that's a funny thing too with the devil. A lot of Christians, Muslims, they like to blame the devil for everything. And which is a really misinformed view, because even if you look at this Christian Islamic devil figure, the devil just dangles a temptation out in front of you to see if you're going to take it. And if you have the integrity not to take that temptation, you're good. You have nothing to fear. Really, the devil's your friend. And he just gave you an opportunity to demonstrate what integrity you have. If you can't resist the temptation, then he's just showing you what you're really made of. So, or how selfish you really are. So, anyway, Saturn, Mars, Pluto, Jupiter, all in Uttarashada. So, Saturn, civil servants, government people. Mars, builders, warriors, all that kind of thing. Pluto, the truth teller. And then Jupiter, the higher consciousness, Jupiter represents banking, even academia, things like that, clergy. So, but Jupiter stands for the economy in a big way. So all of these planets with these archetypes are associated with are all in a Uttarashada in the first degrees of Capricorn. So what you're seeing here is that the world is full of all these experts that they know exactly how things are, they know exactly what needs to be done, but they're not really going to get up and be an example and show you how it's done. They're just going to kind of sit there and just bloviate and talk about how intelligent they are and how they have all the facts. So it's going to take a little while for things to get up and running. Now, another thing here, Saturn and Mars conjunct at the 6 degrees. Saturn and Mars conjunction, there's always some sort of conflict with this. And, Saturn and Mars conjunction traditionally is a battleground. So people are definitely fighting, and Capricorn is government. So, yeah, people in government are definitely having little petty, childish, bickering games right now. But it's not going to last forever. Things are going to get rolling. It's only going to be about a day or two. Mars lingers here, and it's going to move on, kind of leave Saturn in the dust. But what this is going to do, having Saturn here, Saturn is basically giving Mars his marching orders about what he needs to do to clean up this situation in the world and start, fixing things, basically. So then we're on to April 2nd. Like I said, April 2nd, Mars goes to 7 degrees of Capricorn, and we get a little restart here. We're going to start seeing signs. This is going to open a window. We're going to see signs of progress, of getting the virus under control, getting hospitals cleaned up and rearranged. Maybe the mighty Governor Cuomo will get those 2,000 ventilators in the warehouse up and running and helping people, stuff like that. And then, what else? Another big thing here, too, in general, is that we have a Kalasarpa Yoga for much of the month. So the planets will be, except for the moon moving back and forth across the axis, the planets will be all on one side of Rahu and Ketu. So that means that you're basically living in fated events and fated times. So you're living through and witnessing big times and events that shape the future. So then, kind of a big day here in my opinion, we get to April 4th. Not only my birthday, but Neptune and Mercury are conjunct on April 4th. And this is at 25 degrees of Aquarius. So Mercury-Neptune conjunction, I call this sophomore day. It's very sophomoric energy, and sophomore, this word doesn't just mean your second year in high school or college. Sophomore comes from the Greek words that mean wise moron. And since this is going on in Aquarius, Aquarius is the mass of people, we the people. It's also big institutions and organizations, outside of government, like NGOs, corporations, things like that. So we the people in these big institutions, it'll definitely be apparent that we've been the wise morons, and we're generally wise morons on a good day, but especially through this whole coronavirus thing, the world has been full of wise morons who they tell people exactly how things are going to be, and they're like, 2 billion people are going to die from this by March 1st. And it's like, okay, so, and then there's all these numbers in the media about, this many people have it, this many people have it, and the numbers contradict each other. And then people reverse themselves on their numbers. They amend their numbers every day when they're seeing that the prediction is not coming out the way they thought. And they were using these very specific numbers, and it's like, how the hell would you know that? So sophomore means wise moron. So again, the world has been full of wise morons lately who they can tell you exactly how it is, and it doesn't turn out that way, because it's like I've been saying, coronavirus is 9/11 2.0. Really, coronavirus is the 9/11 that the left wing can love too, because they find guns and military all too aggressive, and it offends them. But they're eating up this whole coronavirus fear mongering. And the right wing is, a lot of people there too are too, but it's 9/11 in slow motion. And since it's not war, there are all these politicians trying to talk all cuddly and snuggly and like they're nice people. So, the left didn't really buy 9/11, but they're buying this. So, April 4th, we're wise morons. So, we need to be aware of this and, not be such wise morons. Now, with this Neptune-Mercury conjunction on April 4th, this is going to open the door for basically government lies. The government lies are going to start coming to our attention. All of the lies we've been told for a long time, not just about coronavirus, and there have been a lot of lies told about this. And it's like I mentioned in a previous video, you're going to start seeing a whodunit story with coronavirus and a good guy, bad guy story. And we're going to start talking about where this came from, somewhere other than nature, and somebody's going to try blaming someone for it. And already this is happening. Chinese government are blaming the United States, saying that it came over with the U.S. Army during the World Military Olympics that were in Wuhan in October. And then a lawyer in Texas filed a lawsuit against China for $20 trillion, which is bigger than China's GDP, for all the economic upset that this virus caused the United States. So we're going to start seeing this, but we're going to see other government lies too. The UFO thing is going really mainstream. The Navy is telling its pilots to report UFOs, saying that, UFOs are real things. So conspiracy theories are becoming real. And then more is going to come out. The sex trafficking, the drug trafficking, the pedophilia in high places. We've seen this with Jeffrey Epstein, Harvey Weinstein, and it's gonna keep rolling. Prince Andrew. What's next? April 7th, we have full moon in Virgo. And so, this is a big deal. The moon, among other things, it represents our minds, but it's also our physical bodies, kind of the everyday us. So, Virgo is all about cures and healing, deals with medical care. It's huge for healing. So, full moon in Virgo, and it's going to, really, it's going to illuminate our potential to basically to heal ourselves, and to heal each other as well. So, and the other thing too, on April 7th, we have Mercury entering Pisces with the Sun and Uranus. So, I'm going to talk about Uranus a little later in this, but Uranus is like kind of the great game changer. Uranus is like super eccentric, and it's all about breakthroughs and innovations. So, Uranus is in Aries right now. So, you have Sun, Mercury, and Uranus all in Aries. And intellectually, and an even like kind of deeper at a soul level, we're going to start thinking about innovations now, because this is in Aries. Aries deals with leadership, so we're going to start thinking about what we want leadership to look like in the future. This isn't going to be an overnight change, but we're going to start thinking about do we really want these leaders that are owned by these big multinational corporations, who are basically run like racehorses and NASCAR drivers. So this is going to start coming into the collective consciousness. And then April 8th, Mars at 11 degrees of Capricorn. So Mars gets to the edge of like the 5-degree orb around Saturn where its influence is really strong. So you get to about April 8th and beyond, rebuilding efforts in the world are really going to start ramping up. You're going to see more progress. April 14th, Sun enters Aries. So Sun goes back to the first sign, and this is the astrological new year is really, up and running. It started with the new moon in Pisces, March 24th. Now the Sun is in Aries, and the whole thing begins again. And again, Uranus is in here too. So in my opinion, leadership in our world is going to be revolutionized. This is going to take time. The people we have ruling us right now, they're basically, if you remember back to high school, it's like the slimiest people in student council who would do anything for a vote, and we're just totally attention hungry all the time, and we're very like two-faced and kind of duplicitous, and really busybodies that want to boss people around. This is who we have ruling us. Doesn't matter what party, it's both parties, it's every country. It's 30, 40, 50 years later, and these people have law degrees. So we're going to start reconsidering who we allow to lead us. And then, April 19th, Uranus is coming out of shadow. So, Uranus went retrograde. And it was at 12 degrees of Aries. It was in late August 2019. Uranus went retrograde. Uranus came out of retrograde in March, but it's been in the shadow zone. It's been in the degrees that it was retrograding in. So on April 19th, Uranus comes back to the 12 degrees it started the retrograde in. So it's moving forward again. Now, a big thing that happens, Uranus goes in retrograde. People's minds, people generally gravitate towards the good old days. People, they want to live in their glory days, and they don't want to reinvent themselves and evolve and, become a new person. They want to go back to the good old days. So, really through the summer, the fall, the winter, everyone wanted to go back to the good old days in a more intense way than usual. So Uranus is moving forward again. And again, Uranus it's innovation. It's, Uranus is someone who comes into the room and just flips over the Monopoly board, and kind of gives you a mischievous smile and is like, too bad. So Uranus is going to do this to government and leadership, and really the people who we've allowed to lead us and boss us around, their true colors are going to start coming out. We're going to see how they really are. Uranus just also does radical things to show you the truth. So, and then next we have April 22nd, we have the new moon in Aries, again with Uranus. So new moons are all about kind of cleaning the slate, especially cleaning out energies that just don't serve you anymore. So we're going to start thinking about this again with our leadership, because this is new moon in Aries, and Uranus is here to change it all, to make radical changes. So, people hear radical and they think some, right-wingers think some radical left-wing government's going to come in, or left-wingers think Hitler's coming back. It's like, it's not that kind of radical. It's radical as in almost like the beginnings of a new system and a new way of relating to government, really. So the new moon just clears things out. And, what can happen, people can feel kind of agitated sometimes on new moons, just like they do on full moons. If you have something you're clinging to that you refuse to get rid of, that'll cause the agitation during a new moon. So, look inside yourself. What ideas do you have about leadership, whether it's leading yourself or being a leader in your family, your community, or even about your national leaders? What ideas do you have that no longer serve you? So look into this. April 24th, new moon enters Taurus. So Taurus is a very friendly sign for the moon. It's Venus's home sign, so a really good place for the moon. And we're going to start really thinking about, having quality in our world. What do we want things to look like in the future? How can we make things better than they are now? April 25th, Mercury enters Aries with Sun and Uranus. So, I'm talking about Uranus and Aries a lot, and it's a big season for that. So Mercury, Sun, and Uranus all in Aries. Again, Mercury is the intellect, so the intellect is thinking about, what kind of leaders do we want in the future here? What do we expect from a leader? It's about reevaluating what we expect from people in positions of power. April 26th, Moon and Venus are going to conjunct in Taurus. So Taurus is Venus's home sign. Moon is Taurus is where the moon is exalted. So they're going to come together. 22 degrees of Taurus. So this is a big day when we start, even more so, we start thinking about, and we get creative about thinking about how can we change the world for the better? How can we bring more quality into our lives? We've been obsessed with quantity, bigger is better, more, and this whole coronavirus situation has taken away the more. Because you really can't go out and spend your money anymore. So we're thinking about quality now. And Taurus deals a lot with, your home and, improving it, improving the environment you live in. So, Moon, our mind, and then Venus, our creativity, are going to go to work on this. So it's very encouraging. And another thing on April 26th, Pluto goes into retrograde in Capricorn. So Pluto, the truth teller, the devil who shows you who you really are, he's going retrograde. He's going to get even more intense. So there's already potential here in this month for disclosure. This is going to make it even more intense. So things are going to get interesting. You can bet on that. And then last day of the month, April 30th, Moon comes into Cancer. Moon is at home in Cancer. Cancer is all about our sense of comfort, being comfortable in the world, in our environment. Especially, Cancer is like your home, your homeland. It's, maternal, nurturing energy. So we're going to start to think about improving our homes and our homelands and, the places we live. And really, I guess, feel more at home in our homes, if that makes any sense. We've been cooped up in our homes, but it's kind of an opportunity to appreciate that, we do have a home to isolate in through all this. So, this will be definitely an intense sort of a month. People are still using the whole coronavirus thing to be very petty, and it's like a Trump bashing opportunity that's totally out of context. So people are still being petty about things. People are still playing a blame game, but there's a lot of innovation coming. There's this whole spiritual reawakening that's happening, and we're starting to think about just bringing more quality into our lives. And, a big part of this should be, of this quality, we should be thinking about being healthy. Because when you have a strong immune system, you really can't get sick. So, and the last little point I wanted to make here is, I was looking at these Uranus retrogrades in different events. And Uranus retrograde makes us want to go back into the past. So I did some research, and Uranus was retrograde in Capricorn on 9/11, and 9/11 really stoked people's like World War II nostalgia because and I was in the military at the time, and a lot of people were part of the baby boom generation who were senior officers, senior enlisted, and the baby boom generation has a real inferiority complex about not being part of the World War II generation because they were just taught to worship World War II vets like gods. And then the ones who are too young to go to Vietnam have like a bigger inferiority complex because they never had their Great War. And then those of us who are, grandchildren of the World War II generation, we have, we grew up with that to a lesser degree, but it was still present. And, really the Band of Brothers series really stoked that whole fire. So 9/11, we sort of reached back into this World War II mentality, and we thought we were going to have World War II, but we didn't have basically two big empires to go to war against. We had this terrorist group that had maybe 200 members in the entire world. So this is an example of how Uranus retrograde tempts you back into the past. Another thing too is that Uranus was retrograde at 28 degrees of Aries on September 1st, 1939. So if you're not a history nerd like I am, you're like, what the hell is September 1st, 1939? That's when the armed forces of the Third Reich invaded Gdansk, Poland. That's when they, Gdansk is right, it's on the Baltic Sea, it's right near Eastern Germany. So that's when Germany invaded Poland. And so interesting thing is that in 2023, Uranus is going back to 28 degrees Aries. Right now, as of right now, we're kind of in 1936 because, Uranus is at 10, 11 degrees of Aries. So, and that's where it was in 1936. So, some people in the astrology have been talking about how, the energy of World War II is coming back, and there's kind of a scare of a new world war. Well, I can see what they mean. The thing about the thing about Uranus is that, like I said, Uranus is a game changer, and it leads to, he facilitates breakthroughs, innovations. So Uranus and Aries, it makes people want to innovate systems of leadership. When that goes in retrograde, people want to go back to the past. And, when Uranus, in the different signs Uranus is in, Uranus is telling us to innovate, that area of life. When it goes retrograde, it's, it is telling us to find something from the past that could be useful in the present and in the future. These messages can get distorted, and when you look at the history of World War II, there's a lot really gets lost, and, one of the things, part of the whole, like the agenda, we're talking about the beginning of World War II, part of the agenda with the Nazis is that they wanted to wipe out the Vatican. They had a big bone to pick with Christianity for basically destroying the native traditions of Europe, and they kind of were, the Nazi government taught people, the government taught yoga, they encouraged the practice of yoga. Astrology was, they ran horoscopes in the newspapers. They were kind of doing an Indo-European, kind of a pagan revival, but they took it way too damn far, and they did really horrible things because they basically took the message of Uranus out of context. It's an understatement, but that's what was behind the whole thing. Another thing they wanted to do, they wanted to level Wall Street in City of London. They wanted to get rid of the predatory central banks that basically put governments and their people in debt. So, that their collective consciousness picked up on this message from Uranus in Aries, and especially when it went retrograde, but they misinterpreted it and they took it way too far. So we're getting another opportunity to basically change the world order, and that's a thing that they talked about. They talked about new world orders back then in the 1930s. So we get an opportunity here because Uranus has come back to where it was in the 1930s. We get an opportunity to reset the world order, but we have to make sure that it's not misguided. And really, to have a good world going forward, a beautiful world, we have to not wait for messiah politicians to tell us what we need to be doing and what we want. We need to have our own willpower and our own identity. We haven't been raised to do this, but we need to step it up. So I go on and on about that, but I'm going to wrap it up there. So thanks very much for tuning in. If you'd like to see where you stand in these challenging times astrologically, how this affects you specifically, and what your kind of natural opportunities are, what opportunities you can seize with your natural talents, and a lot of us have hidden talents that we don't even realize. If you want deeper insights into this, definitely book a reading with me. I have a 40% off sale running right now. Coupon code is SkySpy40 for 40% off. And this also applies to my rune readings. Rune readings are a great mind map, and it kind of shows you where things are going well for you, mentally and emotionally, and where you have blocks. And with these astrology readings, with these rune readings, I custom build you a meditation that you can use to help remove these blocks. I also have some videos for sale for download, some Qigong videos. Qigong, again, is a mind-body practice. It helps you to strengthen your immune system, sort of breathe easier, breathe deeper, breathe easier, and just relax and really get in tune with your energy, deeper levels of your mind, your unconscious mind. So I'll have more coming out. Thanks for tuning in today, and I'll talk to you later. Have a good one.